Jewish News Syndicate. Welcome to the show, Alex.
Anna, thanks for having me.
So my first question, why are Israeli troops pressing so far into Lebanon? Are they trying to pressure Hezbollah into that peace deal I just mentioned?
Well, Israel's position has always been that the only way that you actually get to a ceasefire is with a show of force. But I don't think that Israel and Hezbollah are anywhere close to a ceasefire right now, even as Israel discusses a ceasefire with the United States. And even as the United States discusses it with the Lebanese government, from what we understand, one party that is not part of the negotiations right now is Hezbollah. And I think that the United States and Israel are just pushing forward with this. Israel playing along, just kind of to run out the clock on the Biden administration, hoping that on January 20th, that Israel will get backing to press much harder against Hezbollah and hopefully eradicate it as a military force and even a political force within Lebanon.
So you don't see a peace deal, a potential peace deal with Hezbollah. What about a possible ceasefire with Hamas?
I think that Israel is going to be inside the Gaza Strip for a long time until Hamas ceases to exist as a military force there, and until Israel is able to figure out who's going to govern the Gaza Strip in Hamas's absence. And I think that come January 20th, you're going to hear Israel discuss more about a provincial military government led by Israel inside the Gaza Strip and potentially trying to work with local Palestinian leaders that can take over various jurisdictions until some kind of nationalistic representation that wants to work with Israel can take shape. But that's something that Israel is just not in position to say as long as the Biden administration is still in office.
We were telling our viewers about another top Hezbollah leader that was killed overnight. I am curious, how much does the leadership vacuum in Hezbollah slow negotiations? Is this why Iran is now taking a more active role when it comes to these peace talks?
The opposite. It doesn't slow negotiations at all. It makes it much more difficult for Hezbollah to double down on its positions and to fight the war against Israel. The less top leadership you have in Hezbollah, the more likely you're going to get the surrender of various commanders down the line in the field fighting against Israel. The more you have Lebanese Hezbollah commanders surrendering and running back, the more likely you are to see a ceasefire declared.
Alex, I am curious, what would a peace deal look like in Lebanon?
I think for Israel, it's very clear. There needs to be a buffer zone that moves about 17 kilometers north of the Israeli border. The natural border there is the Litani River. Israel has created a 5-kilometer buffer zone until now. They want to make sure that Hezbollah has no chance of crossing the border coming into Israel, that the short-range rockets cannot hit Israeli towns near that border. And I think that ultimately Israel is going to push to have Hezbollah expelled from the Lebanese government. Hezbollah is a major part of the parliament in Lebanon, and I think that Israel is going to say that if you want to have normal relations with Israel, that you can't have a terrorist organization as part of your government.
Let's talk civilians. Over 1 million people in Lebanon have been displaced. What does their return look like if a ceasefire is actually achieved?
Well, I think people are going to start to assess what the civilian situation is like in Gaza, whether people can actually afford to move back into most of these houses, and ultimately, I think will also depend on if the hostages have been returned to Israel. Mm-hmm. You might hear the Trump administration take a tougher stance on Gaza than the Biden administration did, saying there won't even be humanitarian aid until the hostages are back. But once you have a ceasefire, that's when there's going to be attempts to rebuild the Gaza Strip. And I think that Israel is going to try to make certain that it can determine that any rebuilding efforts inside the Strip have to be closely linked to de-radicalization, meaning that any efforts to incite against Israel, any efforts to continue to organize terrorism against Israel is going to cost the Gazan citizens in terms of the rebuilding efforts.
You mentioned there is the possibility of stopping humanitarian aid altogether under the Trump administration. Just recently, the Pope has called for investigation into if a genocide in Gaza has occurred. How much does this kind of external pressure matter to Israel? Do they care at all, especially now that Trump has been elected president?
Well, certainly Israel cares in this next 60-day period, and there are threats that the Biden administration could allow resolutions to pass, even via abstention at the United Nations Security Council, even as early as this week. So there's definitely a cause for concern. If Israel can get through to January 20th, then the Trump administration can use a lot of leverage that it may have against the United Nations, against the International Criminal Court, against the International Court of Justice, all of whom are trying to hold Israel responsible for a genocide that, quite frankly, is not taking place in the Gaza Strip. The Trump administration might be able to penalize these bodies for trying to accuse Israel of defending itself against what was the worst terror massacre in Israeli history on October 7th.
Alex Traiman, CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of JNS. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.